It's common knowledge that if we put two male lions together, they will fight. And they're not going to become intimate with each other. If we put a female lion with a female lion, they will not become intimate with each other. They will just ignore each other or fight to show dominance. Christ is King. The Blessed Virgin Mary is Queen Mother. Yes. Welcome everyone to the Jesse Romero Podcast. Today we're diving into a timely and crucial conversation as we're smack dab in the month of June. For faithful Catholics, June has long been dedicated to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, a profound devotion to the burning love of our Lord and his mercy, his call to chastity, purity, and self-sacrifice for the salvation of souls. Yet in the same month, the secular world has transformed June into Pride Month. Are you kidding me? Celebrating the homosexual lifestyle and this secular humanist ideology as a form of liberation? No, it's bondage. So in today's episode, we're going to be respectfully but firmly contrasting these two visions. I'll walk you through 10 solid biblical, scientific, academic, and natural law reasons why the homosexual lifestyle contradicts God's design for human flourishing, sexuality, and the family. We'll draw from scripture, reason, and the teachings of the Catholic Church, and even observable data from the sciences. This isn't about hate. It's about truth and love and calling souls back to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Stay with me as we unpack this with clarity and conviction. Yep, let's get started. Okay, a respected scholar once said, quote, "We argue that as a moral reality, marriage is the union of a man and a woman who make a permanent and exclusive commitment to each other of the type that is naturally fulfilled by bearing and rearing children together, and renewed by acts that constitute the behavioral part of the process of reproduction." In other words, sexual intimacy. We further argue that there are decisive, principled, as well as prudential reasons for the state to enshrine this understanding of marriage in its positive law, and to resist the call to recognize as marriages the sexual unions of same-sex partners. Well, that argument is gone because it's legalized in all 50 states now. It's so laughable that Socrates once said, quote, that when we're all educated, there will not be any more sin and evil in this world. Close quote. Incredible. Incredible. George Hegel, the German philosopher who wrote The Science of Logic and has so enormously influenced modern thought, he once said, quote, "We are evolving out of our sin and into higher states of knowledge, and with the higher states of knowledge, higher levels of morality," close quote. What a joke. If only George Hegel and Socrates could see the evil that man perpetrates today. It's in us. We're in a moral mess as well. We continue to murder about 1 million children every year. The family's breaking up as a result of no-fault divorce, cohabitation, and the hookup culture promoted by Hollywood and the music industry. As a result of illegal immigration, crime has increased in America, and the U.S. has one of the highest rates of imprisonment in the world. Materialism, hedonism, self-centeredness, rampant in our country. People just want to do their own thing and look out for themselves. This is the absolute antithesis of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Government assaulting religion on all sides. Same-sex marriage, which is an oxymoron because people of the same sex can't get married. This is a pet issue for the woke liberal elites in our society who are generally college educated and Democrats. I've heard the arguments from homosexual apologists, and I want to respond to them with charity and clarity. Here are 10 points which have been formed by facts, common sense, and my Catholic faith. Number one, the medical and moral argument. There are the claims from homosexual apologists who state that being gay is genetic. I believe that their claim cannot be supported by the facts. Being gay is not genetic. It's a choice. Exhibit A. In 1993, Dr. William Byrne and Bruce Parsons, who are researchers at the New York State Psychiatric Institute, stated that, quote, there is no evidence at present to substantiate a biologic theory of sexual orientation, close quote. These doctors state that, quote, a body of scientific evidence that suggests that homosexuality is adopted by people who are confused, sexually adventurous, and or rebellious. This evidence suggests that sexual orientation is flexible, not immutable, close quote. Exhibit B. In 2002, Dr. John Riggs, who is the author of the journal article, The Health Risks of Gay Sex, 2002, he states the following, quote, research designed to prove that gays and lesbians are born that way has come up empty. There's no scientific evidence that being gay or lesbian is genetically determined, close quote. Homosexuality is a free will choice. All sin is a free will choice. It is a behavior that is nurtured and taught according to the National Association for Reparative Therapy, also known as NARTH, which was a medical institute in Encino, California. They've relocated, I don't know where, but they've dedicated their research to assisting homosexuals that want to embrace a heterosexual lifestyle. Homosexuality is harmful to the gay community, and the evidence of this is the high rate of AIDS amongst its practitioners. Male homosexuals who have sexual anal intercourse have a higher risk of contracting AIDS. This is an uncontested fact. The male men substitute penile vaginal coitus for anal intercourse is dangerous. By way of analogy, the anus is much like the barrel of a gun that has grooves inside which enables it to eject or shoot or projectiles, but it's not meant to receive because of its specific construction. In like manner, the anal cavity, again, it's not meant to receive. That's why when they put you to sleep, twilight sleep, when you have a colonoscopy, because the anal cavity is meant to push out excretions from the body. The anal cavity was never meant to accommodate the penis. The anus is not meant to receive anything from the outside, whether it is man or woman. This is not good for the body because when something is forced up the anus, the skin can be ripped inside the anus, and there can be problems within the body, such as bleeding and muscle tearing. These internal wounds provide enormous opportunity for the entrance and spread of the AIDS virus and other infections. Furthermore, studies show that, quote, the anus is a delicate mechanism of small muscles that comprise an exit-only passage. With repeated trauma, friction, and stretching, the sphincter loses its tone and its ability to maintain a tight seal, close quote. Again, unless we talk this frank with this type of medical precision, the left will win the argument with their mantra that love is love. As a result of the consequences of anal intercourse, which leads to leakage of fecal matter that can easily become chronic. The human anus, from the Latin anus meaning ring or circle, that's the external opening of the rectum. Two sphincters control the exit of feces from the body during an act of defecation, which is the primary function of the anus. In fact, an investigative report put out by the New York Times stated that homosexual clubs have dimly lit orgy rooms specifically designed to facilitate anonymous mass homosexual encounters. In the more risky establishments, sadomasochism, that is torturing your partner during sex, and bestiality, that is sex with animals, are part of the activities. This is why the Catechism and sacred tradition has always called this a disorder, a grave disorder. It's a medical fact that persons trapped in homosexuality are statistically more likely to experience shortened lifespan, clinical depression, drug and alcohol abuse, and life-ending diseases. Moreover, according to recent studies, only 1 out of 7 homosexuals have had fewer than 50 partners in their lifetime, which means 6 out of 7 homosexuals have had over 50 sexual partners in their lifetime, and 99% of the male homosexuals interviewed have had sex with complete strangers. Gay men with AIDS interviewed in the early 1980s reported that they had an average of 1,100 partners in their lifetimes, and some had many more. This is scandalous. A few years ago, during the monkeypox outbreak, this underscores the consequences of grave sin, which LGBT activists demand that society ignore. Practicing homosexuals face a nearly 30 times higher risk of HIV and an 80 times higher rate of anal cancer, as well as elevated risks of other cancers and STDs. The sexually active homosexual population suffers disproportionately from HIV, anal cancer, chlamydia, trachomitis, gonorrhea, syphilis, herpes, hepatitis B and C, genital warts, scabies, HPV, and other conditions. As a result, the average life expectancy of sexually active homosexuals, males, is reduced by many years compared to heterosexuals. Sexual transmission of intestinal parasites in men who have sex with men and direct oral and anal sexual contact is a common practice amongst the men who have sex with men, and is implicated in the transmission of various enteric pathogens, including intestinal parasites. There's a study that was reviewed on the sexual transmission of intestinal parasites among men that have sex with men, and highlighted advances in the diagnoses of such infections. The emergence and spread of intestinal parasites is of public health concern, particularly in the homosexual community. Intestinal parasitic infection should be considered in the differential diagnoses of gastrointestinal disease in this population. The combination of traditional diagnostic procedures with implementation of testing based on novel molecular methods in the accurate identification of intestinal parasites is important so that early intervention and control of infection is facilitated. There's an additional phraseology or vocabulary amongst homosexuals where they call rimming. You can imagine what that is. There's also commonly the oral anal intercourse. I want to talk about natural law arguments. Another aspect. Thanks for tuning into today's episode. If you enjoyed the show, please hit that like and subscribe button to stay up to date with my latest content. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop us a comment or question. For more resources and to connect with us, visit jesseromero.com. Until next time, God bless you and keep the faith. That is very important to point out is that homosexual sex is barren. Surprise, surprise. It produces no life. Men can't impregnate men, and women can't impregnate women. If same-sex marriage became the norm in society and people abandoned heterosexual sex, planet Earth would become an empty wasteland within 1 or 2 generations, 40 to 80 years, and the human race would cease to exist. So let me ask you, does this promote the common good? No. St. Pope John Paul II states that civilization continues by way of the family, open to life, where babies are born. This has been understood and accepted by all 197 countries, by all races, by all religions, since time immemorial. Natural law acts as our conscience. Natural law helps an ordinary, prudent, reasonable person to know right from wrong. God has designed the sexual act to take place exclusively within the confines of marriage. Here's the moral principle: any deliberate use of the sexual faculty outside of marriage is gravely wrong. Therefore, any sexual activity that takes place outside the bond of the sacrament of marriage is prohibited and is a mortal sin. Applying this moral principle rules out the following: adultery, orgy, incest, homosexual acts, masturbation, fornication, contraception. It forbids every kind of genital activity outside of marriage, whether committed alone or with someone else. Read paragraph 2352 of the Catechism and 2390 of the Catechism of the Catholic Church. The first principle that governs natural law is do well and avoid evil. Close quote. It is wrong to perform acts that are contrary to human nature and their God-given person, and their God-given purpose. God-given purpose. The law of marriage is a fundamental part of natural law, which is embedded deeply in mankind. It has been the norm for every culture on planet Earth to the extent that no civilization has ever legalized homosexual marriage. Traditional marriage has been held as the standard by the collective conscience of mankind. Natural law even holds true in the animal kingdom. Animals aren't confused about their sexual preference and orientation. Animals seek the opposite sex for intercourse. They do so by instinct. It's common knowledge that if we put 2 male lions together, they will fight, and they're not going to become intimate with each other. If we put a female lion with a female lion, they will not become intimate with each other. They will just ignore each other or fight to show dominance. But if we put a male lion with a female lion, in short time, those 2 lions will have a high chance of mating. This means even animals are subject to the natural law. If animals follow the natural law by instinct, then we as humans, we're without excuse. Yep. Then we as humans are without excuse. Now, are there exceptions to even the animal kingdom? Of course there's exceptions. So are there instances where animals may attempt to copulate with the same-sex animal? Certainly. That's why they're called animals. They don't have a rational soul. But it's poor science to read human motivations and sentiments into animal behavior. In addition, irrational animal behavior is not a yardstick to determine what is morally acceptable behavior for rational man. Men are designed in their bodies to make love to women and vice versa. The eye provides an appropriate analogy. Think about this. If the majority of the population became blind, blindness would still be abnormal because the eye was meant to see. Nature, purpose, and design tells us what the eye's made for. Just like the male and female body speak a language to each other. There's a theology of the body. The male and female private organs were made for union, which brings bonding, intimacy, and babies' new life, the potential for babies' new life. St. Pope John Paul II said that when the first man and the first woman looked at each other, naked and unashamed, they immediately looked at the composition of their bodies, and they intuitively knew that their bodies were complementary sexually and made for union with one another. Only man can act in defiance of his nature. Only man has this arrogance to think that they know more than what God knows. While man can come to know what is good or evil, he does not have the prerogative to determine what is good or evil. God has already determined that. And so for a man to try to recapitulate God's plan and design for marriage or the human person, God's already set the rules. We cannot change them based on our sentimentality, emotions, or disordered passions. Argument number 3, the scientific argument. Homosexual apologists generally claim that 10% of the population is homosexual, and they state this in... Welcome to the Jesse Romero Show. I'm fired up to share with you my book, Atheism, the Opium of the Elites. 50 questions and answers. Yep, atheism is the devil's gospel. For years, we've been told that atheism is the smart, sophisticated position held by brilliant, open-minded people. But in this book, I flip that script upside down and I show you how modern atheism has become the trendy opium of the ruling class, the elites in media, academia, Hollywood, and politics. I use the clear 50 questions and answers format. I tackle the strongest arguments for atheism and dismantle them with logic, science, history, and solid Catholic teaching. So if you've ever been challenged by an atheist's arguments or want to equip yourself and your family with strong answers, this book is for you. Atheism is the opium of the elites, 50 questions and answers. Modern atheism, I expose it for what it is. It's a false religion of the intellectual and cultural elite. And in this book, I answer the most common atheist arguments, again, with logic, science, and Catholic truth. You'll be equipped to defend belief in God and expose the emptiness and hypocrisy behind elite-driven secularism. Atheism is a serious problem because it makes us ignorant of God, which is the reason why humans fall into all kinds of moral problems. Our moral life can only come from a moral lawgiver that we call God. An immoral society is not good for the common good. The Catholic Church regards atheism as a real problem. The Church teaches in the Catechism 2123, atheism must therefore be regarded as one of the most serious problems of our time. Wow. This book is written for priests, laity, parents, anyone who wants to grow in the knowledge, faith, and courage. Whether you're looking for spiritual warfare tools, wisdom, or answers to today's questions from young people about atheism, this book will help you cut through all the noise. Well, that's a wrap, family. This is the Jesse Romero Show. If you enjoyed today's information, I want to personally invite you to pick up a copy of my book, Atheism is the Opium of the Elites, 50 Questions and Answers. It's straight talk, easy to read, packed with solid responses that you can actually see when dealing with skeptics, college students, or family members who've bought into the elite narrative that faith is for the weak and stupid. It's also great for personal reading, apologetics, groups, or youth ministry. But I'd be very grateful if you grabbed a copy from my website, jesseromero.com, and share this information with others to help spread the truth. Thank you for listening. God bless you. Stay strong in the faith and keep fighting the good fight. I'll see you next time. Viva Cristo Rey. Long live Christ the King. In order to justify their lifestyle. However, this 10% figure is false. It stems from the 1948 report by Alfred Kinsey. The report was called Sexual Behavior in the Human Male. Close quote. The study was profoundly flawed, as later psychologists studying sexual behavior have agreed. The 5,300 subjects that Alfred Kinsey drew from for the study were convicted criminals, and 26% of them were convicted of sex crimes. More recent and more scientific, accurate studies have shown that only around 1% to 2% of the population is homosexual. It is a fact that the incurable disease of AIDS finds its highest population amongst those in the gay community. In the United States, male homosexuals have comprised over 3/4 of all the AIDS cases. Since the homosexual community is only at most 2 to 3% of the population, yet they make up 75% of the AIDS cases in America, one can only deduce that the results of the homosexual lifestyle is not only barren and infertile, but deadly. The CDC reports that 94 to 95% of HIV cases among boys and young men are linked to homosexual sex. Also, the CDC reports that homosexual and bisexual men account for 75% of syphilis cases. Think about this. When it comes to smoking and drinking, we discourage it. Why? It's not good for you. So why don't we discourage homosexual sex? From a purely biological perspective, sodomy, even apart from the transmission of AIDS, is an intrinsically unsanitary and pathological act. In addition, the practice of sodomy has been a primary reason why AIDS has been so readily transmitted and fostered amongst homosexuals. The homosexual lifestyle is wrought with acts of violence and humiliation amongst its practitioners. Homosexual sex frequently leads to serious bodily injuries and even death. While it is true that we are all going to die, we should not accelerate our death by involving ourselves in practices such as homosexuality, which are proven to be injurious to our health. Let's face it. AIDS leads to an early death, and as people of goodwill, we should oppose anything that is harmful to the human race. In San Francisco, where a certain percentage of the murders reportedly are linked to homosexual sadomasochism, a workshop several years ago was offered for instructing homosexuals in how to engage in sex torture without killing each other. Think about this. If workshops in San Francisco on how not to kill your partner during homosexual sex needs to be offered, this indicates that death is not uncommon amongst the practitioners of sodomy. Any sex that leads to death and is harmful to humanity is not a good thing, and it should not be condoned or practiced. Yeah, I get it. Death is part of the cycle of life, but premature death that was avoidable, it's not a good thing. People of goodwill that seek the common good should try to change the minds of homosexual friends and family members through respectful dialogue. That what they're doing has proven to have negative consequences and shortens their lifespan. Let's start calling things by their names. A rhetorical smokescreen has been up since the beginning of the AIDS epidemic. In the late 1970s, before the HIV virus had been identified, the medical profession witnessed what it called GRID, or gay-related immune disease. Instead of encouraging withdrawal from the gay lifestyle, identification of the virus prompted activists to mobilize in safeguarding their sexual conduct. Psychiatrist Jeffrey Satinover, in his writings called Homosexuality and the Politics of Truth, came out in 1996. He wrote, quote, "The first priority was to protect homosexuality itself as a perfectly acceptable, normal, and safe way of life. Massive interventions were designed and funded to a greater extent than with any other illness, but none were allowed to target the number one risk factor itself, homosexual sodomy. Even treatment to help those homosexuals who fervently wished to change came under fierce attack." In the early 80s, the first move by the homosexual lobbyists and the homosexual power structure was a name change. It went from the name GRID was changed to AIDS. GRID was changed to AIDS, or acquired immune deficiency syndrome. GRID was the first name that we started calling this disease. It was gay-related immune disease, GRID. That was changed to AIDS. A spreading lethal disease was disassociated from its cause, sodomy, which is a specific sexual practice peculiar to the homosexual population, which is a protected class by the Democrat Party and the Antichrist woke left.